So here we are with more access. We're going to look at Mod2 in the textbook project, going over different types of queries. Objectives are to create queries and use different formulas in queries and join tables and do some compound data and be able to create a query from the data that's in tables and other queries. So when you're creating a query, the biggest thing is when we're building something is to go over to Create. You can, of course, have one of these selected, but the easiest way is coming over here and we have our query options where we go Query Wizard or Query Design. We did the Query Wizard in the first mod where you have the option to do simple crosstab or duplicates and unmatched to find those. Or you can go into Query Design, and with Query Design you're able to choose which table to show. So on all of those tables and the one that we would like to view this time is appointments, so you can double click or click and add. So either way it allows you to add that table. Whoops, and I did it twice. Didn't mean to do that. Just talking through it. So I'll just remove that table and you only have the one. I don't necessarily need the properties sheet open, so I'm going to close that. You can always resize windows and do whatever that's here, so viewing for there, viewing for the tables, so you can move those around as needed and to be able to see, and then of course you can resize the window of the table to see all fields. And that's very useful for bringing in your data, because if you want to add something to this box, there's multiple ways. One, you can go here and put a few things on the data option, which allows you to bring on that data. Or you can do something with the asterisk. So if I do an asterisk, and double click or put that in there, and I run this query, asterisk is a wildcard, so it shows all the data that is in the table. And that is quite an option that is there already. And we have a few things that probably need to be done. I think from our first one, you can see the one through all of those. So I'm just going to close that. I don't need to save it. No. And figure out what we want to do for all of these. So we're going to add some records. So we're supposed to open the owner's table and add some records that are here. So as we create, you can see these in your textbook too. But Liz O'Brien is what we're trying to add. So we do the O-3, tab to move over, and Liz, tab to move over, and O'Brien. So we need to make sure we spell these correctly and use the rest of the data that's there. 13 Griffin Drive, Dunning, Colorado, 89665, phone numbers and all those goodies. So I'll go ahead and add those. You don't need to watch me do that and type. So with those records created and input, you can see that we have the owner IDs with caption OID, first name, last name, owner street address, and remember that if you come up here to the lines and double click, it's just like Excel, it will auto fit those fields so that you can read everything in each field and not waste too much space, because only those things will be there. Okay, so I can see that I'm missing a few mobile phones, but everything else is good. I'm going to go ahead and finish those up and then show you that data and start the next edition. I have all of the mobile numbers inside that, so all of those are current and up to date as they are added. And then we go to the patients table and we're going to add a few more. So I'm going to go ahead and close the owners table and save it, yes. And that's mostly just the layout, and open the patients table. And you can see that some of them we're going to have to rename them because instead of C1 and C2 and F and that type of thing, we're going to put a P in front of those. So we'll make those modifications, and we're able then to complete the table and do our additions. So I'll show you those in just a moment. So I've added all the other fields and just wanted to show you can also make any changes that you wanted to do, modifications in any field of a record inside the datasheet view or in forms. So these then will be arranged, and if I was to close this, see 10, 11, and 12 is at the top, and I open it up again, notice that the 1's at the top because it's in alphabetical order, not numeric order. So they work quite nice, and so if you wanted them to be in an order option, maybe, and you have 2 digits or 3 digits, you would go 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 9, and then 1, 0. So or 0, 0 options. So you put the zeros in front depending on how many digits that you're working with. And as we go through and we're able to see these, all of them are added and they're ready to go, and then we just have some veterinarians to add. So you can see those fairly good in this video, or you can look in your book. So I'm going to close this one, and I'm going to open up the veterinarians table and add the 2 additional veterinarians. So you can see that I've added the 2 records to the veterinarians table, and you can see all the data. And once again, I'll open all the way across so you can see everything, just in case you need to view it here instead of in your textbook. And just to add, okay, last time. So now we want to make a query of our own. So when we're working with queries, and I'll just close this table, we can select any of the options that we want, but we're in the veterinarians, we want to do query on that table, so I'm just going to go create. I'm going to go query design, and then I'm going to go veterinarians, and I'm going to say add. Close that, and open this to see all the fields. And remember that querying is just the data that you need. So if I wanted to do everything all at once, I can do the asterisk, but I want to do certain fields on there. So on our options, oh, well, maybe I should do appointments like we're supposed to. So sorry about that. I'm not going to save any changes. I'm going to go to appointments, and sorry, I got the table. Go to appointments, 1 click. You don't even have to go there, but you go to query design and pick appointments, double click and say close, show the fields. There we go. Now we're looking, that at least has an appointment ID. That's what I was looking for. So appointments that we're using on each one. So we'll start with the veterinarian. And we'll do the appointment date. So get this out so we can, appointment times, maybe have maybe our office people call, patient ID, treatment number, and owner. Okay, so those fields that we have going across, and we want to create some criteria for the veterinarian role. So the biggest thing when we're using that and how to determine that is we can use whatever ID that we want. So when we're trying to find a particular veterinarian, we can come down here to criteria in the veterinarian field, and from the data that we have in the veterinarians table, they're given certain ID numbers, and like Gonzalez, Dr. Teresa Gonzalez was G01, and Dr. William Black, his ID is B01, so those are things that we can work with. So let's just try that, where we put in the first letter of the last name, and then a 01, and then you run that query. And remember that we have multiple veterinarians, but this then shows the appointment, the veterinarian, the appointment date, the time, the patient ID, and the owner. So that is specific to which, that only shows Dr. Gonzalez, and so you will only get that one option that's there. Now, if we'd like to save this particular query, we could do it one of two ways. We go to File and Save As, or if we go to Close It, it will do a Save As. So I'll show you this way first. So I'll go ahead and say, do you want to save the changes to query design? I'll say yes, and notice that it pops up a query name. So I can save it this way, where I'm supposed to, put a particular name option on it, which is Mod2, and our query 01, so Q01, and say OK. So that pops up the query. So as we go on and move into the next query, we're ready to go, and we go to create, and we go to query design, and we're ready again. Now on a save query, you can reopen it. You can, let's just try that. You can open it this way, where it shows the data, and then go back to design view, and I'll close it. And I'll come over here and right click and open in design view if I wanted to do it that way. And then I can run it to show the options. So queries, remember, are run each time, and the data may change if you change data in your table, which you shouldn't, of course, unless you're adding records and they're working as a logical format. Now, if we're going to use the wildcard, we can do that with a owner's table. So I close the table, so I'm going to come in here, right click, and go show table. Let's do the owner's table and see all the fields. And let's bring in then the first name, last name, street address, the city, state, and postal code if we're going to mail them something. So if I want then to find all of those in a certain state, maybe in Utah, I can come over here, all states, start with Utah. I can come in here and go U asterisk, and that's everything that starts with a U and ends with anything else. And if I was to run that, it would show me all those with Utah. Now that seems to be okay, but notice too that I have numbers in front of words and streets and that type of thing. And I'm just going to use this Jenkins Way as an example. So I'm going to go back to design. This is what I will need to save, but I'm just going to show you as an example. If I go here to the street address, I know what street they live on, but I don't know the number of their house. So I could query that as a wildcard and do Jenkins, and then whatever's after, which be, street, way, whatever else. If I was to run that, then it would find everything that has Jenkins in it. Now that's a lot more useful. Utah, you can pretty much see that, but that's why they do it, is because you understand what's going on. But this is a very useful way to find certain things that you know is there, but you don't know the other parts. Or people that are named, you don't know if their name was Tim or Tom. That is a different part, so I'll do one more example. Instead of that one will go back to our original one here. An asterisk is any number of characters, but a question mark is just one character. So if I run that, it's still going to bring up Utah, but it's just a single character for a question mark. So even though these both work either way, if they spell out Utah, it would still work this way because there's 3 characters after it, where it wouldn't work with a question mark. Okay, so that helps you out with that query. And let's go ahead and I'll show you the other way of naming it. We'll go File and Save As an object, and we'll save as, and it's a query. And what do we want to name that query? Mod2 query 02, and say OK. Very good. Now we're going to open the owner's query, and that owner's query in the criteria for the in design view. And notice that my box is really big here. Well, if I want to see it, I can move things up, and you can see that I need to move it up to see. And I want to put 813 in the owner's postal code. So if we're over here, those in that criteria, everything that begins with an 813 is going to show up. So if I use an asterisk, oops, I need to do that. 813. Oh, I hit an enter instead of my shift key, and I can run that. Oops, I still have that 8 in there. Didn't notice that. Sorry about that. Okay, so 813 was an asterisk, and run, and that's everything with an 813, whatever postal code. So you can see in the book it says mobile phone, but in the ebook I think it's correct. Everything else matches up quite nice, and we can save then that one, well, as the owner's query already. So if we go to close it, we want to save the changes, and we say yes. And you can see when I reopen the code, it's showing those. We'll go back to design view, and if I was to notice that it says or like. Okay, so then we did whatever we put in there, so I'm going to go delete, 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 delete all the way through. And then we're going to put in so that the user can determine what the criteria is. So if we're using square brackets, we can use a square bracket to allow the user to determine what that area code is, and then we put in the message in between the square brackets. So I'm in the postal code, and we can say enter CO or how sorry about that, I'm in the wrong spot, my eyes are good. Let's put it over here. I just controlled exit and control V. So in the state, CO for Colorado. Or UT for Utah. And end that square bracket. And that will then give the user the message of enter CO for Colorado or Utah, or UT for Utah. So let's take a look at running that guy and notice that, oh, it comes up here. So if I go UT, okay, just the Utah one is going there. And if I run that again, notice it comes up again if I go CO. So the user has more control now as to which one, instead of a specific value of criteria, it's running in real time. It's pretty cool. So as we look and be able to see some of that, we're able to use it, and we can do the save object as, and let's type in then save as. And we want to keep the original one, but do the other as we're working with it. So save as an object, and here instead of the copy of, it's a query. Instead of a copy of, we say delete owner's state query. Okay, so and you need to be exact on that, so put a hyphen and capital state and say OK. So it won't find it, in other words. Now, this one is the one that we want. Notice that this one was the one that I did before, but I can fix it because it didn't have any query option to it. And save it now, or run it, and you can see that it has all of that data. And yes, I want to save. So let's take a look then at using the shortcut menu to work through everything in the name of the query. I think I have spaces where I'm not supposed to, so let's take them out. But it looked like spaces when I was told to put it in. So if I rename this guy, right click and rename, I could come in here and backspace there and delete that. So owner state query. There we go. That looks good. And we've tested it out for what it needs to be. And we're all good. Let's try numbers in a criteria. So let's open in a query design with treatment cost. And let's bring down our treatment number, the treatment, the animal type, and the cost. Now if these come out of order, you can come in here and fix them right here. You can come in and delete one. You delete one just by going with the black arrow and hitting delete. Okay. Or you can bring it back by saying, oh, I want the cost there. And if we're using any of those to have what we want the 25 in the cost field. So here's the cost field, there's the criteria bar, and we type in the number 25. Figure out which ones are at 25. That's exactly 25. So we could do greater than, less than, equal to, all of those options as well. And let's save that one then as, so once again this is a query option, I'm just going to close and say yes to save on the changes. And mod2 query 03. Say OK. And let's do comparison operators for dates. Let's use create a redesign appointments table. And let's bring on the appointment date. Okay. Double click, appointment time, treatment number, veterinarian, and patient ID. Okay, so on the date, if we're looking to go something that's beyond that date, we can say beyond or greater than 6/30/2021. And let's run that guy. You can see that there are 2 dates with that criteria in there. And we can save that then as query 4. So once again, yes, and mod2 query 04. Next one is use a compound one with and, so they both must be true. And that's an important composition because you might want both options to come out. So I'm going to go ahead and use that same query. And I'm going to go back to the design and not only have that, but also I want the veterinarian appointments to be with a certain veterinarian. So that would be B01. And let's run that guy, and you can see, oh, that is only that guy. So it is beyond that date and with that veterinarian. So I'm going to go File and Save As on this one. And as we work with that, that's the AND query as an object. And you can see that all I need to do there is just, I'm going to delete that and come back here and put a 5 there. So just working through the different ways that you can do different queries. And let's try an OR option. So I'm going to go back to Design View, and I'm going to take this. See, this is on the same line as the criteria. That means that everything in this bar must be true. So this one must be greater than this date, all appointments, and the veterinarian must match that. Well, what if we want that to be, I'm going to go Control X to cut it, and put it down on the OR line. Control V to paste. So now it can be, this can be true, or this can be true. Not both of them, but either of them. That means we'll have more records. So this, you see all the B1s, and then this G1 is with the date that's after our 6/30/2021. That's the OR query, and we can save that as 06. So once again, if we go to File and Save As, we can save it as an object, and take just a copy of it, and change that to a 6. This is special criteria, so we can use the AND or the between or the IN operator to bring out what we want, and we can do sorting, so we can use words as well. We can sort on the primary key or the secondary key. Let's try if we were to clear the grid. So I'm going to come down and let's do the owners, I guess, M6, this one right here. Okay, and we have the appointment date, the appointment time, number of the veterinarian, and now I want the this, okay. Oh, sorry, we're not in Design View. I want the owner. And maybe we didn't have the owner that was supposed to be there. Oh yeah, owner was supposed to be there in that query. Instead of the patient ID. So need to make a few of those changes. So in our compound AND, which was the 06 and 05, okay, so I'm going to come back here, 06, that should be owner, so I'm going to save that. So if I run it, it'll be good, and I'll close it on the owner and it'll save, yes. And I'm going to go back to 5. And this should also be owner. And that looks right. Yes. And close that and save that. Yes. Okay, so those two are in fact to be incorrect. Now, I'll go on to the next guy. And once again, the special criteria using the AND operator, the between operator. Greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, so you can get between certain values, between certain dates. So you just use the word between if you want to be between, like the first day of January 2020 with that date and today's date. You can get between those. You can use an in operator that would allow you to be either like Colorado or Utah, which would be in, and then in parentheses use single quotes around each option with a comma to separate. And you can just try those out in your book as needed. So if we come in here then to 6, and we go to the design view and we clear the grid. So the clearing the grid means you select one, which is with that black arrow. I'm going to hold down my shift key and come to the end and select the last one. And I can just hit my delete. That's clearing the grid. Excuse me. So if we're looking at making modifications and starting over, we can do that. We can close it and go with everything and be able to use the option that's there. Now, we want to add another table. So let's go ahead and close this and say save changes. This is now go no. We go to the support file that is to be found. So the table that we're looking for is the support AC CMF Vets Extra table. So you can click on it and download it if you haven't already, but it's probably in your downloads folder, as mine was. And you can see mine is open. And you can do this one in a couple of ways. You can create a query and make it either an append or do something like this. If you already had a table made and you wanted to append data, or you can use your current one where you go in, say, external data. Notice that you have import options over here and export options on this side. So if we're going to export, we can determine what type to work with. If we're going to import, we go to new sources, and then from database, it's an access file. And we're able then to find it. So I'm going to browse. I should have put it in my CS folder, but I'll go to downloads. And I want any of these, or generally support files are okay. And I'll say okay from that spot. And tables, and there's a veterinarian. You have to actually click on it. If you don't click on it, if I go out and bring it back, it's already clicked on. But if it looks like that and I say okay, there's nothing selected, even though it looks like it. So I have to say okay. And you can do multiple ones if we had it. You don't need to save the steps. And we're able to close, and magically we have another table with our vegetarians vendors. Pretty slick. Don't have to enter all of that data, which is a blessing. Okay, so let's go ahead and close that one, and let's make a new query. So we're going to go up here and say query design, and we're going to work with a treatment cost table. Close that. Let's bring in the treatment, the cost, and let's go down to our sort option. So you can see the sort field, and this is the sort row. So if we want to sort on cost, we can sort here. And if we do ascending or descending, you can down arrow. Okay, so possible sort orders, and we want the actual ascending option, and we can run the query. And you can see there's the least expensive to the most expensive. And let's save that one. So I'll do a close. Yes, I want to save it. And I'm going to go Mod2 and query Q. Okay. And we can experiment with some of those things and try to work around and sort backwards and that type of thing. So, but we can. That's how we would like to leave it on this one. And then let's take a look at our design view. Oops, excuse me. And if we're taking some of that, we can determine which one we want. There's always a properties sheet, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that one, or you could open another one and bring cost on. And if I go to this guy over here, and the second option, and I can right click on here and do properties, and you can see all the properties in that particular field, and it's going to change if I click on whichever field that's there. Notice that does that, so I can see what's open in my property sheet. So if I'm in the wrong spot, and notice that if I click up here, this is the query, it goes to the query. If I click here, it goes to the field. So important to know where you are and which property that you're actually looking for. And if we do costs here, and we come over to this guy, and we say, okay, I want all unique values. Okay, so here's unique values. Saying you can double click or go down arrow and choose, or type in a Y. And now if I run that guy, I got all unique values, not all the 10s, not all the other things, all the unique values that were there. So that will alleviate the duplicates. And let's go ahead then. So we'll go ahead and save that as query 7. So once again, I can, if I go to close it, it'll ask if I want to save, and I'll say yes. I can close this guy too. So now we want to work some more on treatment options. So I can open this guy or start a new one, and it doesn't help me because I only have one field there anyway, but create 3 clicks away compared to 1, up to you to how you want to do that. Just making sure you have to do the save as. And close there. And so we want the data for treatment cost, or excuse me, treatment number, treatment, animal type, and cost. So let's bring on all of them. And we're going to sort on multiple keys. So we want this ascending order for both animal type and the cost field. So here's, oops, that will either show or not show the data that's there. Just going to drag this over a little bit. So on the sort, let's do ascending there and ascending here. And let's run it and see what it looks like. So you've got all the canines together, all the felines together, and the cost is in ascending order on those. We can experiment a little bit and other sort combinations if we'd like. And let's save this then. So if we go back to design view, we can let descending order, flip it around. Yeah. Okay. We can sort on treatment number, but it's a primary key, so it's just going to be in order anyway. How about treatment? So I'm going to go here, and maybe how about treatment ascending, and I'll remove this guy. And you can see that is in alphabetical order, and then 2 meters with different costs. So I'm going to put it in an original option, so ascending and ascending, and then remove this guy. And we'll save that then as 8. So, yes, on the save, Mod2, query 08. And then now let's go ahead and take a look at how we want to do with top values. So if we want to do something that allows us to work within the database itself, we can go to Design on our query, and then you can see that this returns all. But if we would like to do top 5 or top 5% or 25%, we can do any of those. So let's just take a look at what the top 25% is. That's a quarter of it. Okay, pretty close. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, which would be the same as the top 5, of course, for this particular run. Let's try the top 5%, which would be a little bit smaller. And let's go back to 5. So that gives you the top 5 in that group of whatever that is needed. And let's, of course, do a file and save as. Take the copy off and change that to a 9. Doing good. Okay, how about joining tables? Let's take a look at doing that. Let's create a new design, and let's add the appointments table and the treatment cost. Make sure that we can see. Okay, so you can see that here's treatment number and treatment number. So automatically these guys are brought together. And what is nice is that you can draw data from both tables, and of course the relationship is what makes it important. And as we see both of those, they have the join line in specific, and we can then bring down some fields as we need to. So like the appointment date and the wellness exam on the options for treatment, and the animal type and the cost. So without the appointment date, of course, we wouldn't know when those would be happening. And everything that we see that we're working with, we can put a particular order, appointment date, and the treatment field. Let's sort those guys in ascending order. And first one would be first, especially primary key, and we're able then to see what those look like. So let's take a look at the run. Appointment date, treatment. Oh, I still have top 5, I think, don't I? Let's take a look. No, they're off. Okay. Yeah, that looks good. You can see how you can grab data from both tables that make it useful. We could even have like the veterinarian. You can add whichever one data that you'd like. And let's save it as appointments and treatments. Yes. Very good. Can we change the join property? So let's return to, I guess I didn't mean to close it. Let's return to the design view, and let's go ahead and right click on that, and we can either delete it or we can join it. So if we go join properties, notice that we have some options here that allow us to say okay. We want to include only the records that match. So if we join the properties at the dialog, include, that was what was already met, and if we go 3, because these are radio buttons, you can only have one of these options. We're including all the records from the treatment cost, whether they have matching appointments or not. And then if I say OK on that and then run this query, notice that we have something that looks quite different. So these are the appointment dates, but this is all the different treatments and of course the costs of those. So we can work with, let's just try right clicking and join properties, and let's try number 2. Say OK and run it. And you can see that we're back to somewhat of what we had. Right click. Oops, I didn't quite get on it. There we go. Only include all records from appointments and only those that treatment costs or join are equal, or all of them. That's what we want, and that's what we're going to save as. So let's go ahead and say OK, and we can say save, and close that. And then let's try a couple of other queries that we're able to run from it. First, let's create a report from a query. If we take a look at the appointments and treatments option, okay, that's, I save that. If we go to then create a report, I think I wanted to do the wizard, so I'm going to close that. See the difference about what that is. Let's go create query and report wizard, and we're able then to choose the appointment option and then all fields, and go next. Hit the next button without doing anything there, and we don't need to specify the grouping, that's why we missed that. And then we've already got a sort in there, so we don't need that. And tabular looks good. And let's take a look at just adding the word report at the end. Make sure it's spelled right. Finish, and let's take a look at what it looks like. Pretty magical. And we can close that, and we're off when we want to print the report. Okay, so let's take a look here at reports. This is the one we just created. Just like anything else, if you come here, we can say print, and we're able to print the report. We'll do a print preview. This is what it looks like. We're right back where we were. And these down here will show you the different views. So this is the print preview. You can see this one where we have the properties to look at, and it's the layout view, and then here's design view where we can actually make changes. We'll do that in Mod2. Let's try to create a form from a query. If we still have appointments and treatments clicked as the query, we can go to create and go to form. Once again, there's form wizard, or just form if you want everything. We wanted everything, same as report. And you can see that these then are empty appointment dates, but we could add appointments as we wanted. And we can go to the end, we can go back to the beginning, or we can go through it. So if you wanted to add a new one. So this is a form option, so if we right click and say save, come over here and put form at the end. And OK. So using a form as we like to, and we want to add things to it or being able to modify, we can do exporting, copying, Excel, Word, and resize these options. So if we'd like to export data to Excel, we can do that with this query as well. So I'm going to close the form. And if I go to external data, I can go to Excel or any of these options. And where I put that is up to me. So file format is true. I can browse to where I would like to put this. So I'm going to put this in my documents, my classes, my Mod10, access. This is Mod2, so this is where I have all my Mod2 options. So I'm going to go ahead and save. And there it says export data with layout. We can check that to include the layouts there. And we can also check the box and open it after the destination is complete. Say OK. We'll take a look. And we'll want to save these changes. And you can see that there it is, beautiful in Excel. And we can go ahead then, and here's export treatments. That looks okay. That's alright. This is to create an Outlook task if you have Outlook open or saved on your computer. Okay, very good. You can do text files. We can do almost anything that's there. So PDFs, email, access to access, and of course Word, and more.